Hey, it's Lindsay and Carmel with Single and Mighty. And today we're talking to Michelle Jacobik about money.
Money. I love this episode because money is one of those things that causes people a lot of stress, but we don't always talk about it. So I love that we are getting into the nitty gritty of money, budgeting. And I love that Michelle shares her journey of regaining her financial footing after divorce, because it can be tricky. And I know you're pretty familiar with that journey.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really resonated with me. And I think as single parents, suddenly the onus is on each of us to create a financial future for ourselves. It's not going to happen that somebody is going to swoop in and solve everything for us. So we need to get our heads around money, budgeting, thinking bigger about money so that we can grow our financial future, all of those things. And Michelle is the perfect person to speak to this.
Yes, not only has she had her own single parent journey, but she's also a financial expert. So she's actually sharing some really great tips, the pillars for gaining control over your money, over your life, actually, kind of pressing the reset button on your life. So I am super excited to share this today.
Yeah, me too. All right, let's get into it.
3, 2, 1.
We are so grateful to have you with us today. And one of the things that I'm super excited that we're going to be talking about is money, which is something that a lot of people hate to look at, but it is so, so important, especially if you want to do things in life, have things in life, gain experiences in life. They all require some amount of money. And so I want to pull the sheets off. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but off of that conversation and make it something that it's okay to talk about. So the first thing I'd love to do is have you just share a little bit about your story, like the Coles Notes version of your single parent story.
Yeah. So my story is, up until 2009, things were going pretty rosy for me. I was married for 15 years, 2 amazing kids, the boy, the girl, the picket fence. And I also had a successful business. And then in 2010, we got divorced and life changed dramatically. My expenses were higher. Our retirement and savings that we had built over 23 years together were literally split in half. And the truth was that I realized at that, transition stage of my life. And it was a planned transition, by the way. I was the one that, things weren't working and was brave enough, I think, to say like, hey, we've got to figure something out. And the figuring it out was, a planned transition, which we were both like, yeah, we're going to get a divorce. That's not always the case, but that's what happened. And so I came into this, thinking, okay, this is a decision that we're both making and, it's all going to work out. We're going to be able to figure things out together and we'll just be better co-parents than we were in a marriage, because we always did that really well. But the truth was that I had to rethink and reprioritize my life in order to gain my financial footing, which was that whole everything gets split in half, right? In addition to that, in 2014, I decided that the price that I was paying to be as successful as I was taking a toll on both myself and my kids. And I'd made a decision to step away and retire from my business. That was like the financial stability and my complete identity in life, right? So again, here I was at this crossroads needing to make financial choices and changes. And when I went through these transitions, I became really interested and passionate about how to muster through life's transitions. And quite honestly, having to navigate it and figure it out for myself through those experiences, I figured out a process. And quite honestly, what's happened as a result is now I've been able to educate and work with hundreds of people in this area of financial stability, helping people really navigate those deep, dark, scary waters of transition, one of them obviously being divorce. And I think most importantly, helping them just resettle those fears and shift into a place of empowerment. Like, I'm in a scary place. Life isn't linear for any of us, right? But if we have a plan and we start to be able to pointedly control our buying decisions, we don't necessarily have to lose our financial footing when life does happen to us on life's terms. And I think, quite honestly, that the financial piece of it is that it's the strategy. It's that creating financial stability and leaning towards financial consistency. It's something that we all have the ability to create. And if we can give ourselves the space to figure that out, or to pause long enough to say, this is important for me to be able to move forward after the transition of divorce, then I think that we can all be on the winning side. Not easy, but I think that we can figure it out. It's about women.
Yeah, we are. It sounds like such a powerful decision that you made, first of all, stepping out of your marriage consciously as a brave decision, as you said, and saying, okay, we're going to step out into this uncharted territory. And even though you didn't get what you expected, or maybe it was a bit surprising once you got there, it sounds like you had enough faith in yourself, even at that early point, that somehow you knew it would come together. You knew you could figure things out, which I feel like a lot of single parents, deep down, they really do have something inside of them that says, okay, I know that no matter what happened, I can figure things out. They just kind of need a little bit of like a guidepost, or like what to start with, what to do next.
Agreed. Because what happens is, right, you come off those courthouse steps and you're in a fog. And I think no matter what happens, we have to deal with grief, right? Whether you're choosing the divorce or whether there's been indiscretions in the marriage, whatever the circumstances is that caused this marriage to end, no one goes into it thinking, I'm going to get a divorce. And if you have children that are blended into the mix, or pets, right, and family, like I not only divorced my spouse, I divorced my former spouse's family, which, because you don't know how to navigate that either in the beginning stages. And so I think, we come off the courthouse steps and we're in this fog, and we're in this place of no matter what's gone on, we have to give ourselves time to grieve. And I think there's so many stages that we walk through. Like, I just remember sitting at my desk and thinking, I wait, like literally blinking, and it was an hour later and I had no idea that I had been in a fog. I remember like in a parking lot, parking my car, going in for groceries and coming out and have no idea where I parked the car. It was that layer of fog, right? And so when you're in that space of grief and figuring out, like you're grieving that this thing didn't work out the way that you wanted. And then you layer in the money crap, right? Like divorce is about money, marriage is about love. When you're bringing all of that together, when you're finally on the other side, you're having to navigate a whole lot of stuff that we aren't prepared for. And therapy is so important. Having the right tribe is so important. Having grace for yourself is so important. And then through those spaces, yes, coming to a place of self-trust, right? I say that's the biggest thing that I learned as I navigated through these transitions, whether it was, that, or even making the decision to pivot and sell my business and start all over again. Or even recently in this last year, I navigated a geographical change and moved to Florida. And it's self-trust that grew from those places of having to figure out how to get through the darkness in order to be able to get to the other side, but always being around people that are a beacon of hope, as you said, so that you're getting the right vision for what life can be like beyond what you've just come through, because there is life on the other side.
I love that so much. And I love that link between the supportive tribe that you have and the self-trust, because they kind of go hand in hand. If you're constantly surrounded by people who question your decisions, who tell you it's never going to work, who are generally quite negative, it's going to be really difficult to maintain that level of self-trust and build it up to a level where you can make those tough calls and trust that it's going to work out, that you have the resilience and the resources to just make it work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that for me is the biggest piece, is that when you're being super cautious, because, the truth is that we all have friends that are divorced. But I remember thinking to myself, when we first separated, all of a sudden everybody comes out of the woodwork and they're like, oh, let me tell you about this. I had men calling me and messaging me and like about their stuff, and women doing the same. And I remember thinking, is there anybody in our subdivision that's not having issues? And everybody that you thought was happy all of a sudden is coming out of the woodwork to share he's been sleeping on the couch for 9 months. And I thought thought that was normal. And I'm like, it's not normal. And I just remember thinking, yes, people will share their deepest, darkest stuff with you, and it can poison their experiences and how they're transferring those to you in the time where you're the most vulnerable is so important to put a layer, you're right, between their stories and their experiences and yours. Like I always say, you look for evidence. Is that true in your own life? And don't let their story be your story.
Yeah. Yeah. And so many single parents, they have that, they've been through the hard stuff, or they're going through the hard stuff, and they're really knowing that you can use that as the base to build your future, that you've learned this stuff about yourself and that you've become resilient. That's a really hopeful message too.
Yeah, it could be the launching pad for the best part of your life, or it could be the diving board where you're going into the, the deep end and you just don't have anything. You don't have the life preserver on and you don't know how to swim. So it's making sure that you have the right tools, the right people around you, and definitely the right mindset for sure.
So what got you through it? What got you through those hard times? And was it your tribe? Was it your mindset? What are the things we can use about that?
Therapy, all of it, right? So honestly, it was all of it. What got me through it was I've always been a super, positive person. From the time I was 20, I've had vision boards. I've always dreamt big. I was the kid that my parents always like, get your head out of the clouds and, stop, think a little bit more realistic. And I never did, I think what helped me is years of personal development and the tools that I had in my tool bag. And I think that when you do work yourself through the journey of life and you're always looking to grow personally, professionally, specifically in this space personally, that you have that tool bag. And when there is something that you're grabbing for, when you're in a situation and what is in the tool bag isn't working, none of those tools are working, then you will, you are okay with seeking support. And so quite honestly, I think I was lucky enough to have things in the tool bag. And also, my kids had things in the tool bags, and I was clear to be able to see what they didn't have in the tool bag. And the things that they were going through were something I never experienced, right? Children going through divorce. And so I was clear to say, okay, do they have things in their tool bag? I've got the village around them that we had been building, right? We always have that village, but it's like, do they have what they need? So I think for me, it was this understanding, this humble understanding that you don't have it all figured out and that you have to have support. And that's so true of everything, right? Humility got me through. Humility helps us remember that we don't have it all figured out and that it's okay. Integrity helped me figure it out, like walking with integrity and not speaking awful things about my ex-husband or talking about things that the children didn't need to hear because they were adult things, not children things. And listen, sometimes that advice came from my children, right? Like, my 15-year-old daughter saying, hey, Mom, because sometimes you'll catch yourself. And so I think it's a combination of integrity and humility and courage. Like those are the things that when I think about what got me through, it's those pillars that I had been walking with in my life. And now I just had to apply them through this transition, right? Not being afraid to ask for help and go to those places where I needed to have support. I think about when you just asked that question and I was thinking about the tool bag, I was thinking about how so many of us, when the pandemic happened, now all of a sudden the kids are home, right? And I'm trying to run a business virtually, and this is how I run my business. I have clients all over the world, and now my 16-year-old stepson is on the other side of the wall doing school, and I just remember thinking energetically everything felt off, and no matter what I pulled out of my tool bag, nothing was working, and I was like,
right,
you've never been here before. You haven't navigated it. You don't have to have the answers, but somebody can help you. And it's funny because behind me, I have bells that one of the suggestions that this person that I had support from suggested, at the end of the day, ringing the bells to separate my energy from closing the door and okay, this work is done. blessing my office because, home offices, and then also clearing the energy when I went into my office. His room where he was doing schoolwork was on the other side, and I could feel the energy, the negative energy, and I'm like trying to stay in a positive state. And so again, I wouldn't have learned those couple of things that helped me navigate that new space without asking for support, right? And having new perspective that moved some of the blind spots that I was having and gave me more tools in my toolbox, which have come to me here. And now I don't even have kids at home, but I still am using them.
Yeah, the tools that we learn in any area of life, I think, always offers the opportunity to transfer to another area of life or another stage of life, or to simply be able to support others in their struggles, which I think is one of the greatest gifts. That's what I experience anyways in having gone through my single parent journey. I'm still in it, but I'm at a place that's further along than some people. And so I can share the lessons that I've learned, share the tools that I've gained so that maybe their journey is a little bit less hard.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's so important. And, it's our experience, strength, and hope is really what it's about.
Yeah. Well, speaking of tools, one of the big things that you're known for is helping women really get their financial success together and redesign their lives. And you have some fantastic tools in your book, Prosperity After Divorce. So I would tell people to take a look at that. But can you tell us a bit about your money story? I mean, how did you come to the point where you're teaching this and developing tools for other people and helping others get their minds around it?
Yeah, I think, for me, honestly, like everyone else, I had no clue, and it took me some time to figure it out, right? I actually am a financial expert. I was going through my divorce, and at that point had my, Series 7 stockbroker's license, a financial advisor for 23 years, owned an insurance agency, was in the community working with entrepreneurs for over 18 years, helping them navigate risk management and run their businesses and protect them. And the truth was that, when I went through this period, I first had to figure out how to be a business owner who went from not having the day-to-day responsibilities of the kids and their schedules, because my former husband was home with the kids for 6 years, to now needing to figure out every 2 days how to navigate my parenting and business responsibilities. And here's what happened for me, right? On the nights and weekends that I didn't have the kids, I masked my loneliness and my discomfort with either more work or time out to dinner, spa, retreat weekends, vacations, because I was so tired, right? And I would simply call up a friend and be like, hey, let's do dinner. I don't have the kids tomorrow night, right? And then I would treat because they said yes. And I honestly didn't navigate those early days well at all. And I knew 6 months in that I needed to reset and figure things out. My expenses were higher as a single parent, as you know, right? I actually was the one paying support and a settlement out. And it was a lot of pressure on me, but I wasn't looking at my life picture. I was completely avoiding it. And to be honest with you, what happened was one Saturday morning, right? I got the mail. I had my monthly credit card bills from the furniture store, the appliance store, Best Buy, all of those places that I had gone to purchase all of the new items for my new home that I was renting. And I had used their 0% credit card offers, right? And I now open them and I see that the time is almost up. It's like, oh, in 30 days, I'm going to owe this. And I'm looking at my bank balance that had already been depleting at an exorbitant rate because I was unconsciously spending and living my life. And I just remember thinking, oh, shit. Like, I have to pay these and I'm down to X number of dollars in my savings account. And I got super uncomfortable and I got really scared, like all at the same time. And I remember just being brave enough that Saturday morning to sit down with my other credit cards that, even though I paid them off every month, I knew when I looked at the transactions, right? I looked at the balance that I owed on that, all the money that I had spent on eating out, my new gym membership, the deposit on the family vacation that my kids and I were taking. And I saw that I owed just shy of $8,300. And that was in addition to the rent, the groceries, the cable, the electric, the support, and settlement payments. And I literally felt like I got hit with a brick. So I had all of these people. We talk about the tribe, right? I had great friends around me, my family, I had a therapist, the attorney, the caring mom, but no one was saying anything to me about my multiple trips to the store and shopping, my expensive weekend retreats. And the truth is, I'm sure they didn't ask because they thought, oh, she's got it. Or why would I dare to ask about her money situation? Because we don't talk about money, right? The truth was that I was sitting there that Saturday morning thinking, you better figure it out, because I had no plan. I had no budget management. I had nothing in view other than the fact that I had gotten divorced. And so, being a self-help junkie, I was like, okay, I'll just get another book on finance and find something about, navigating a transition and, rebuilding your retirement, whatever. And I remember getting a book and getting it in, and it was all things finance, but it was nothing about finance and divorce. And so I thought I had to figure it out on my own. And I just started I stopped going out. Now, I didn't go into that place of scarcity. What I did was I gifted myself the time, the quiet, and that intentional space to lean into actually designing a new life. Like, okay, Michelle, if you want to define what prosperity is going to look like for you, then you've got to look in each of these areas, not just financially, that you really want to build your life around. The kids, the relationships that you want to attract, your work, my spiritual growth, my money. And I started working through all of those pillars. Like one at a time, I started working through them. But each time that I started going into a pillar, I was doing it through that lens of finance. Like I was looking at the work in the kids and thinking, okay, I know that they need more from me. I know that I'm working too much. I know that I want to be more present. What would that look like if I figured that out? What would it look like to be more balanced, right? What would it look like to just change some of the things that I was doing, the places where I was being unconscious, and start leaning into, oh, these are habits that I've created, or I'm playing from this place of emotions. If I stepped back and I worked through those emotions, how would I be showing up? And so I started working through each of these pillars, and it was a holistic approach, even though each one of them tended to come from that place of like rebuilding financially. And I kind of kept the lens on the money, but knowing that prosperity wasn't about the money, if that makes sense. Right? It's different.
I love that distinction.
Yeah. And it allowed me to make the distinction. It allowed me to make the distinction that I was choosing to redesign a life, not just a bank account, right? Not just a retirement. But I also, as a woman who loves to help other women move into a place of taking care of themselves, whether they're married or not, is getting clear about how am I going to retire? Like when you just split half of everything down the middle and you're now starting at 45 with half of the retirement account, how am I going to retire? I don't want to be in poverty at 65. So if I'm conscious, what are the right questions to ask? What do I need to learn? How do I need to show up? All of those things were part of the formula. And it came from that place of empowerment. Like, what do I want my life to look like when I'm 65? And just like our health, we have to choose. Like, do we want to be healthy when we're 65? Or do we not care? Right? And I want to say we should care about both, right? Our health is our wealth, but we should also care about our wealth. Yes.
We should definitely care about both. And I love, there's something you said a little earlier that you weren't going into scarcity, like you stopped the spending, but you didn't go into scarcity. And I think that's a really, really important distinction to make, that you stopped the spending, and that was an act of giving yourself space to figure out what do I actually want to spend my money on?
Yes. And it was such clarity, because what was happening was I was numbing, right? Numbing the same way we do with drugs or alcohol, right? Or Netflix for that matter. Like we could numb ourselves anyway. I was numbing myself with those tools. Like I'll just go do this or go do that. And the truth was that, when I think about the eating out, I think the month that I added up the credit card, it was like $1,400 was like just stopping for coffee on the, I had a Keurig, but I'd stop for coffee on the way to bring Alex to school. And then, I'd grab him a bagel. And then on the way, to work, I'd drink the coffee, but then I'd get there and my assistant would bring me a diet soda every day. And then it was eating lunch out because I'm a busy mom and I don't have time to make lunch. And then sports, right? Sports with two kids in different sports. You're faced with this whole, it's 8:00 at night and let's just run through a drive-through. And then I was like, well, I don't want to give you McDonald's, so we'll go to Panera. So when I added it all up and then I multiplied it by 5 years, I could literally see how much prosperity I was letting slip through my hands. And I had a choice. We could still do the things that we wanted to do. So I think for me, the budget management, the financial management pieces, and I say budget because that's the picture, right? I call it lifestyle design planning. I don't even like the word budget. It feels like scarcity, but it really is a plan. It's a tool. And I think for me, it's really figuring out in advance, like, where do you want those dollars to go? What I do is through the book, I teach people how to use two tools. One is looking at your lifestyle as a whole, not just the bills with due dates, not what I call the yellow pad version of budgeting, where you put money in minus your electric bill and your rent or your mortgage and your car payment and insurance. You're leaving out like 70% of your lifestyle. Our hair, the kids' sport, allowance, vacations, Christmas, car taxes, like, you've got to bring the whole thing in, and you've got to do it as best you can without bringing all of the emotions in. Because when you have that clear picture, you then can start to ask better questions. Like, what am I not seeing? What is possible? What can I change? How can I create the money that I want to have in order to activate this lifestyle that I've either designed or even desire? Because maybe you're deciding to go in a different direction and remove, maybe there was control issues in the marriage with finances, and now you're in a place of freedom, and you again have to decide what that's going to look like for you. So I think that sitting down and getting clear about the lifestyle design is the first piece. And that's what I really empower women to do. And then having a tool that helps you. I use a virtual envelope system where you basically tell dollars in advance, because, the car taxes may not come until next June. But if you know what they are, that you take and break that number down over the next 12 months and you literally save for it, like it's coming. It's not savings, by the way. You're I don't want to say pre-saving, but you're pre-depositing in a separate account every time that you have dollars come in for those things that are coming. So you're spending, and those things they're not surprises anymore. Because I think that's the biggest thing, is we've got to unnumb ourselves from saying, oh, I didn't know it was Christmas in December. Like, it's Christmas in December every year. Yeah.
So fair.
We can line ourselves up better when we're trying to take a look at the whole picture. And is it scary? Yes, it's very scary if there's not enough. But as you said in the beginning, it gives us rise to figure it out. We've got to figure it out.
What advice do you have for the avoiders? The people are like, I know I should, but we come up with and I'll put myself in this because I have things that I avoid too. We have these things that we avoid, and we come up with every excuse in the book for, I'm too tired today, or, oh, I'm not thinking clearly, or I'm my blood sugar is low, or I had a fight with my kid today and I just can't, what I mean? So what would be your advice?
Accountability.
Yeah.
Have a buddy. Have an accountability buddy, right? So we don't go out to dinner with our girlfriends and that's our accountability buddy and we talk all things money. But when you do is you schedule it, right? So you find somebody who can hold you accountable, especially when you're in a single relation. When you're a single, it's really challenging, right? I say the same thing with couples. It's like you've got to have committee meetings, you've got to have money meetings, and have it one time a month where you're talking about the money. And it's harder as a single because you don't have to. It's like, I don't have to. But the truth is that if you are going to pull yourself into the place of looking at these things, having an accountability partner and just having those check-ins, like, hey, I'm working on these things and I'd love for you to be my accountability partner here. And so maybe it's not an every week check-in. Maybe in the beginning it is, if you're trying to make some changes, but maybe it's a every 2 weeks, or maybe it's a once a month. Hey, you know what? I've made this commitment to myself to sit down and do my planning, and I just need to make sure that I'm being held accountable. And so I'm going to text you, or text me on the 1st of the month or the 5th of the month and ask me, did I do it? Right? We always have more success when we have support. And I think that, you can buy the course, you can read the book, you can do all those things, but you're right. If you get stuck in that procrastination or that analysis by paralysis, which happens as well, accountability is the best place to pull yourself out of it.
I love that. And I totally agree. Accountability is where it's at. Lots of people have this analogy. If you make the commitment to yourself to gonna work out, you can still just kind of flake out on yourself. We
100%.
will often not hold commitments to ourselves. But if you book the time in the yoga studio, like you take a spot, and it's going to cost you if you don't go, even if you don't go, or if you have a gym buddy or a walking buddy or whatever, you don't want to let that person down.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you'll do it.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing, as you said, was it has to get scheduled. The second thing is the accountability, right? And then the third thing is, if you're stuck, asking for help, right? Yeah. Asking for help, asking an advisor for help, or just till you learn. I always say when I work with women, it's like, I'm just holding you while the training wheels are on. Eventually they come off, right? And you could take the training wheels off and you're good. So it's all new for many people. Avoidance comes from many different things. Sometimes it's because they've never been taught. Like, no one taught them. Nobody taught personal finance. They didn't talk about money in the home, or there was scarcity issues. There wasn't enough. The other thing is, I've tried it before and it didn't work. I've tried it. Budgeting doesn't work. Tried it. So why try again? Yeah. Right? Yeah. And then
as if there's only one way to budget.
Yeah. And there's not only one way. In today's world, there's so many ways. Right. And then the other thing too is just being empowered enough to say, when I know what the reality is, like what my truth is about the situation and what it is I want to create, then you can start to think about, as you said, dig into that resilience and that persistence and think, okay, if the situation that you're in right now, maybe you are minimum wage and you are not even getting support that you were planning on getting, right? Then how can you elevate your income as the person who's faced in this situation? Well, today we can learn in so many ways, right? Like, you can get certified, you can learn coding, you can go on YouTube, you can work remotely today. Like, there's so many ways that we can create money and educate ourselves without it being a $40,000 to $60,000 a year education that comes with a degree. And I'm not against degrees, but there are ways that we can elevate our income and our earning capacity by leaning into new ways of learning skills and techniques that are transferable into earning more money, including Ubering. There's the side gigs and there's education. We can go either route that we want. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. Well, that's a lot of really great advice. I'm curious about the advice that you've received over the years. One of our favorite questions is, what's some of the worst advice you've ever received?
Okay, I love this. So someone literally said to me, literally, I can't even believe this, literally said to me, yep, your ex is going to move his new girlfriend into your house, take over your old life, and might just hate your kids. Be ready for that. And I remember thinking, really? What the F? Like, I just remember thinking, WTF? Like, oh my gosh, is that true? Like, and they were so like clear about it. And I laughed it off when they said it. I laughed it off. I think I even said like, yeah, her name's Jennifer. And they were like, no, her name is whatever. And it was like this weird conversation that happened. And it was like advice that they were trying to give me. And I think I was in the separated point at that point. Like, are you sure you want a divorce kind of thing? It was kind of that advice, right? Like, are you sure that you don't want to like work your way back over there? And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, that's like awful. And that was their advice. Like, this is what's going to happen to you in your life. And, of course, when my ex had his first girlfriend, these thoughts ran through my head, right? And I actually wrote a chapter about this, about my first meeting with her in my book. It's called My Grandmother's Afghan, the chapter, if you read it. And I remember walking in to, yes, my home, and here my son had forgotten his backpack. And I remember like going, okay, I'm going to bring you your stuff. And I actually rented in the same development, right? So like we were literally like, they could ride their bikes to my house. We made things very easy. And I remember walking in the door, and there was my son with this new girlfriend in my home on the couch, and I immediately couldn't breathe. Like, I was just, those words rang true in my head. I could hear this woman saying these words to me, this advice that she had given me, like, here it is in front of me. And I'm thinking, oh my God. And I literally, like, she was super nice, and I was like, couldn't get out of there fast enough. I cried the whole way home. And I just remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, this is going to be, could this be true? And when I got composed and I took my breaths and I stepped back and I cleared the tears, you go back to that. Is it true? And is this is this really my circumstance? And I just remember thinking, okay, what did you see? And what I saw was my son was laying on her lap, my grandmother's Afghan over him, and she was like petting his head lovingly, his little red head. And what I saw was somebody that was a complete opposite depiction of that picture. Right? What I felt when I walked in was that advice. And so what I want to say is people are going to say things to you that is the worst advice, that is their story, their experience, their way of trying to guilt you, shame you, whatever. You know what? Just don't listen. That was the worst advice. And I know that it's not even advice. It was sort of this like picture, but it really was so strong that it felt like advice. And then when it showed up, 10 months later, I really thought that she was right. And was I really in this situation doing the right thing? And if this woman didn't like my children, what was that going to be like for them? So, kind of weird answer, but that was my experience.
Great answer.
I love that answer. I'm so glad that you shared that story, because I think, when we're in that place where we're making a choice, whether it's divorce or something else, and people are kind of uncomfortable maybe with it, or they're bringing their own story into it. And then they put that on you, they project that onto you. And it can, like, if she had never said anything and you had walked into that situation, would you have had the same experience? No. Probably not.
Yeah. And thank God, that I was able to get my bearings, but that could have been a complete spin in a really, who knows what direction, right? Yeah. Emotionally. And again, being in therapy allowed me to have that place to process through that, because honestly, that had never come up as I was moving through the therapeutic pieces of healing. That never came up. But then when it happened, I was able to bring that conversation into the room with a professional and say, here's what I need to work through. Right. So I had guidance through that, not just left to my own vices, which could have been pretty nasty. I could have spiraled in a lot of different directions if I didn't have the support. So, yeah.
And there's so many negative stereotypes around for single parents. There's so many horror stories that we hear. Our culture is just full of it. Women often think they're going to end up on the streets and alone and horrible things. And so just being really choosy of what you let into your consciousness, what you let into the story that you tell yourself. And you don't have to buy all those stereotypes.
Yeah. I love that you're doing this.
Thank you.
It's so important. Yeah.
Yeah.
They say change the channel, right? This is the channel that you change to.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah, you need to have those messages of support, and you need to see those other people who have done what you want to do, and then your brain is set and can see that it's possible. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah.
Michelle, that was the worst advice you've ever received. Can you tell us some of the best advice that you've received?
That I've received. So I would say that the best advice that I received was honestly to not talk badly to my children about my former husband. That was the best advice. Like somebody saying to me, it will go so far for you if have a place, have your boohoo crew, have the place where you have a sounding board where you get to say the things that you need to process, but don't let it be with your children. And, my kids today, we're now 12 years beyond that divorce. And I will say that the ability to have open communication, to sort through things, and the fact that we can all sit in a room together. We just celebrated my son's graduation from college, and my daughter got married 3 years ago. And to be able to stand in a room, we now have a grandchild, and to be able to stand in a room with new spouses, and have this level of we've gotten to the other side. And because we didn't get into that deep, dark place of just smashing each other in front of the kids have had such better experiences. And I know it's not always easy when you've got somebody who's not showing up, or there's, other issues. I'm not saying that my experience is anybody else's, but I think that we have other places where we can find support to be able to sort out the things that we're feeling and how we get the sounding board that we need. I don't think that we bring it to the kids. And I think that was the best advice. My mother gave me that advice, and she had never been divorced, but in her ability to protect her grandchildren, she would remind me. And it took some reminding in the beginning. We all slip into that space, and that we just catch ourselves in the emotion of things. And I just remember my mother just saying, it'll go so much further for you in the bigger picture if you just walk with integrity through this and have the places where you say it and keep the kids out of it. Yeah. It's different when the kids are being hurt.
Smart.
It's different when the kids are being hurt, right? I didn't have that situation. I had a piece of that, but it's a whole different thing. But again, navigating it so that the kids aren't hearing it from you. They're getting support where they need the support. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love
that term that you had, boohoo crew. I've never heard that before, and I just think that's the best. Everybody needs a boohoo crew. Of people who will let you complain and then kick you in the tushy afterwards and say, okay, that's enough.
Yeah, they're going to hold your tissues and pour the wine, and then they're going to be like, okay, session's over. Yes, absolutely. In a loving way. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Those are the people
in a loving way. That's very important.
Yeah, for sure.
So important.
Yeah.
All right. We've made it to our lightning round. We have a few questions that we'd love to just run past you. Carmel, did you want to go first?
Oh, do you want me to start? Okay. What traditions or rituals have you created for your family? Well, I guess this would be, before your kids moved out. What were the traditions or rituals that you created within this new family dynamic?
One of the rituals that I created was a gratitude journal, and I've always journaled. I've always come from a place of being grateful. Fear and gratitude can't live on the same plane, right? So I started a tradition where we had a gratitude journal on our kitchen counter. And it was just a little notebook, like a simple little notebook. And every day you had to write two things, something that you were grateful for, and then something nice about somebody else in the house. So,
wow.
Yeah. So even if you were having the crappiest day, like you could open up this journal and somebody probably said something nice about you or something that they were grateful for. And so traditionally, that was definitely one of the things. The other thing that I would say too, rituals and traditions is my kids, like we listen to Wayne Dyer all the time, like on the way to soccer. Like my son thinks that, Tommy's story, he thinks Wayne Dyer's his uncle. And I think that traditionally it's also when they're moving through transition is always giving them a place to be learning and growing personally. And we had there were so many teachable moments that I had at my discretion through that transition. And I chose to actually lean in and create some new traditions and rituals around that space that helped all of us grow and heal and really be in a positive place together. So those would be the two.
That's beautiful.
I love that.
I love the idea of looking for those teachable moments, and because life can be crazy, and in the middle of this chaos, it takes a lot of presence of mind to sort of say, oh, okay, well, actually, this is the moment that I can be an example, or I can ask the kids questions that'll help them really grow here. I love that.
Yeah, and let them ask, right? There were never questions that were off limits in my mind. And I think the biggest thing is that, the transition of divorce is one life transition, but I guarantee you that your children will have a transition that is planned or unplanned in their life. And if they aren't privy to how you navigate, how you show up, how you, even like the virtual envelope system, like, when I made the decision that we weren't going to eat out $1,400 a month, all of a sudden it was like, oh, are we broke? And it was like, no, I'm going to walk differently with our money. And then teaching them, when they asked, oh, where are we going to go for dinner tonight? Or can we? I was like, grab the phone. What's in the envelope, right? So it was teaching them that it's not that we didn't have it, but like, oh, there's $33. So which way do we want to go? Do you want to have pizza? Do you want to stop at Subway? Like, or do we have something at home? Oh, we have leftovers, right? If there were 13, like, it's not that we can't, it's what do we want to do? And when I talk about, these transferable things, this is what I'm talking about, because now my children have virtual envelope on their phone and they walk with it both in my daughter in her business and personal life, right? Like it's transferred into all areas of their lives because they aren't afraid to plan out their dollars before they come. Yeah.
I like that idea. I know the same thing with me. If I was hesitating about eating out, that's what my kids say. They say, oh, are we struggling? And I would say no. And I didn't. That's a great answer for them. It's just that demonstrating, because it's so hard to talk about money. And we have so many taboos from childhood and stuff. And you never want it to be seen as not able to meet there, not having enough money. And so having the right words to answer that situation, it was just a choice thing for me as well. And so I love that, to sort of say, no, we're just making a choice here. And this is what we've got, and what are the values that we're going after? Is this important to us? Yeah, I
Absolutely.
really like that.
Love it.
Yeah. Thank you. And last question, what about yourself? What do you love to do to take care of yourself and have some of your own personal joy?
Well, I moved to Naples. So that feels like I'm taking care of myself, because I just had the best winter of my life, right? So I came from Connecticut, and, I went back for 28 days in May, and I was hosting some client events and also some VIP days with private clients. And the sun came out only 6 days. And I literally was like, okay, the way I've taken care of myself is I really did build a life and a business, like this new business and what I'm doing to support people. It really is the true dream, like what I envisioned. And if you asked me 8 years ago, when I made the decision to step away from my insurance practice and sell the agency, I had no idea what I was doing next. I would never in my wildest dreams have guessed that this is where I would be. And so the way I take care of myself is I get myself to the beach for a walk in the morning. I will be catching a sunset tonight. I'm going to hang up with this podcast and I'm going to go up to the pool and take a swim. Like, I just give myself time. I love to read. I love to walk. I love just meditating, listening to music, being with friends. I have a great partner, my spouse today. Like, we're super compatible, and just time with him even just elevates me. So yeah, I feel like I'm in a new stage of my life because I'm an empty nester. And it's afforded me like a whole lot of weird space to make me decisions. There's like more time than I ever have had. And I love it. So yeah, it's a little bit of, it's easier to navigate and balance in this space. Now, I just finished writing my second book. So I will tell you, up until 2 weeks ago, I did not feel like I had a lot of space. It's been a crazy year. But even there, I knew to put my mask on. I at least got my walks in the morning, and I caught a sunset at least 4 nights a week. And sometimes it's just that 5 or 10 minutes where you just step outside and you hear the birds sing. That's it. Like, that's enough for me to feel like I did something for myself. Sometimes sitting here and taking 6 breaths and just counting that I took 6 breaths. So yeah. And massages, it's all of those things. Yeah.
Great.
Fantastic.
I'm curious about your new book. What's it about?
So my new book is called The Path to Profits, and it is it is written for entrepreneurs and really about navigating the process that I've used for 3 decades about how to build successful businesses, which is vision first, getting clear about the life you want to create, and then designing your business to align with that. And then the second pillar is flow, which is all about cash flow, not avoiding the money, and figuring out, your path to profitability in your business and what that looks like for you. And then the third pillar is grow, which is all about visibility and getting more eyes on your business and making a bigger impact in the world with your work.
Yay,
So
that's
fun.
so exciting.
Congratulations.
That's so exciting.
Thank you.
I love that. Well, it's been absolutely lovely to have you, Michelle. We've really enjoyed this conversation, and I think you've given us a lot to think of in terms of building our financial independence and our financial futures. And so thank you for that. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you wanted to make sure that we had?
I think, for me, helping people get beyond, like, the book is the first step, right? Getting clear about the pillars and getting themselves through the work. And then knowing that there is an extension of the book. So I have a course it's a self-paced course called Mastering Your Next Chapter. And so there is help beyond that first step where they can move themselves through a little more intimate. They get into the book, maybe do some of the details, but then they get the worksheets, they get the different things to basically uncover and do the work with video support. And then also I have a support community on Facebook called Prosperity After Divorce. There's over 2,300 women in there. And it's an opportunity, if they need to have some support there, that they've got a community around them. So yeah, that would be the things that I would add, is that there's extra layers beyond the book. And then the book's been on, it's been in the top 100 for 4 years. I'm still getting letters every week. I get an email or a letter. It's beautiful to know that it's out there, and it may not be what I lead with in my business today. It's more the philanthropy side of showing up for women and men that have navigated through this. But it definitely is showing up in the right places. So thank you. And thank you for having me.
Before you leave, we want to give a big shout out to our friend and musician, Laura Kosh, who wrote our intro/outro music. Laura is the singer-songwriter for the band The Quirks, and you can find them online at The Quirks, KWERKS.com.
If you enjoyed the show, make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other single parents in your life. Thanks for listening.
3, 2, 1.